Hey everyone, thank you for watching Selig Film News. We are here in the Dallas International Film Festival Lounge, and with me today is Ty Roberts, the director from the Iron Orchard. Ty, what excites you about having the Iron Orchard screen here at the Dallas International Film Festival?
Wow, just about everything. You know, we were a Texas-based crew and cast for the most part. We even had an executive producer from Dallas. Part of our grip and lighting team was Dallas-based, and so we're pretty limited on our film festivals here in Texas. But you know, this was a natural choice and ended up being probably the best option we could have done because it's just a great sized festival. I mean, we've gotten to know like everybody here in just a couple of days, and it's just contained and been a really warm reception on all fronts from the festival. And James has been awesome. Jonathan, those guys are very welcoming and treated us very well. So we couldn't have done it any better. So we're very lucky.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, man.
And since we are at an international film festival, would you please also talk about the international talent that you had working alongside you? How did you get them?
Yeah, our director of photography, Mathieu Planfos, is from Paris, France. And we had been on the hunt for a DP for months, obviously, beforehand. Had one guy committed, then had a big scheduling conflict, and he bowed out about 2 months ahead of schedule. And then we had a guy come in about 6 weeks in advance of the shoot. And about 2 weeks prior to shooting, he had to bow out. And so we had done a last-minute sort of cast a pretty wide net to try to bring in kind of the best option. And it was getting down to the wire, as you can imagine. Everybody was really nervous, and somehow Matthew, I think his agent got through to us, or we connected with the agent, and basically she said, I really want to introduce you to Matthew. He is in Japan right now shooting a commercial. I'm going to send him the script. He's flying back from Japan tomorrow, and hopefully he'll have read the script on his plane flight back. And I was like, no, we should probably write off Matthew. You know, he's going to want to sleep on that flight. Yeah. Well, sure enough, the next day, she emailed or called and was like, he loves the script. He really wants to talk to Ty, but he wants to do this film. So he had read the script on the plane flight from Japan to New York. So we talked. Literally, I was walking around for an hour and a half in downtown Big Spring, Texas, as we were scouting, discussing scenes and sort of the emotions and, you know, kind of my vision for her, you know, showing off the West Texas landscapes. And he was just like, oh, West Texas, it is so mythological, and, you know, we love Texas in France, and, you know, this is something I really want to do. But he got it on an emotional level to the story. And once he got into that and really started pinpointing some of the character moments, I was like, man, this guy is our man. So he flew out almost immediately. He had like a 4-month-old baby.
Wow.
Got to New York, living in New York now. Saw the baby, the wife for like 2 days, and then flew to West Texas. So, and then just we hit it off and had a wonderful shoot together, and just a super passionate, very, very physical DP who has an incredible eye. Just a master technician, you know, lighting technician, as well as loves to operate and just get down and dirty and just fearless.
And how did he survive the Texas heat compared to the locals?
I got to tell you, never once was there a complaint. There really never once was, at least in West Texas. It was hot. You know, we were enduring, it started off at about 102 and got up to 112, 115, they say at during certain days. He really never complained about the heat, and I couldn't believe it. We got to Austin, shot 4 days in Austin, and we were shooting one day in Elgin, Texas, and he was sitting on the side of the porch and just like had his head down. I was like, you all right, man? He was like, oh, this humidity, it's horrible. So the humidity did get him, and I think it got us all. It was probably one of the worst days. It was only like 100 too, but the humidity at 90%, it was just like, a killer. But just a real pleasure to work with Matthew, and I think the work speaks for itself in terms of his abilities and, our ability to just kind of work together and kind of paint a little bit different perspective and picture on West Texas. That was my hope, bring in a foreign eye to a new place and see what excited him about it. Having grown up there, I know what I wanted as well, and it definitely melded very well together. But oftentimes he had some really interesting takes on things and how to shoot things, and just as really, really integral part to that, and went the extra mile on those hot days to set up even longer and harder shots, and just we're doing it, just fearless. So it was amazing.
So with a DP that's very talented and very experienced and someone that you trust so much, I noticed that some directors, when they direct, they prefer to kind of be behind the monitor sitting alongside the DP, whereas a handful of directors prefer to be in on the action with the actors. What's your style, and why is that? Why is that particular way for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually shoot a lot, so and have DP'd other films, and I love to operate as well. But this time, I think that confidence between a DP and the director was built fairly quick, and I really enjoyed either watching from his monitor or at our video village. I was always getting up between takes and going and making adjustments here and there, not necessarily camera, but with the actors and whatnot, and was very, very sort of integral on set with them, and the blocking and just sort of how the framing, I think, would play out. And Matthew just kind of made his way with that camera, and oftentimes was on a movie with a easy rig, so he floated a lot and moved around, and stylistically it's kind of what we needed, because there was a lot of freedom there in a lot of ways. At the same time, we had a lot of limitations as well, so we moved very quick. We didn't always have a 360 set, which I wish we did, but when you're moving so fast, we got to these locations and we just set up so quickly, banged out our shots, and then moved on to the next. And so we didn't have the time to have that 360 set, which is what you want in West Texas. But when there's nothing around, you don't have those sort of freedoms, because you have to build, your fourth wall and video village and whatnot. And we just didn't have that option. So, but it really worked well in the end. I mean, I always kind of had an itch to jump in there and operate or something every once in a while, but at the end of the day, I focused on directing the actors. Matthew knew what I needed and knew what I wanted, and if we weren't getting it off the first or second take, we'd make an adjustment and get it. And ultimately, we got really everything we needed. So, and it was brutal because there's a lot of wind, and we had a jib, we had the Movi sort of set up, and it didn't always work flawlessly because of the elements, but ultimately we got it all.
So for the big gushing scene, in Big Spring,
Yeah.
I mean, weather being a constraint, pushing you back, how did you get the performance that you needed from your actors in one take?
You know what? I think it took us 2 days to get that shot because of day one's weather. We had the scene ready to go. It was kind of a one-er take in that we didn't have a whole lot of actual fake oil to do multiple takes. We had probably 2 or 3 takes, but we built up everything, got everything set up day one, and a thunderhead started to come in from the east, and we thought, okay, we'll get it. We'll get the shot. And, things took a little longer. It was a big stunt day. And ultimately, everybody got into position. We'd kind of blocked and rehearsed and figured out where they were going to run after the fact. And within seconds of calling action, lightning struck twice within a few miles. And I think it was a 7-mile sort of safety zone that everybody was very well aware of, that we had to, pull the plug if we broke that sort of zone. And the AD and a couple other people got together and they were like, it's past. It's moving so fast, and so we didn't get to shoot the oil, the spew at that moment. And so when we came back the next day, I think the anticipation had built up so high that everybody was just like absolutely thrilled. We actually got the shot off, and so the excitement of the actors, I think, was very legitimate, actually, and real, because we finally got the shot off. And it was a perfect day. I mean, you can see in the movie, one day is a little cloudy because we used shots from both, because we got close-ups as well, but the wide explosion was really just for the second day. So, but if you look closely, you can see certain shots are a little darker and others are totally clear. So that's our one big, uncontinuity, I guess, of the shoot.
Well, but I guess if you hadn't said it, then people might think it was part of the movie with the gushing and everything, right?
Yeah, it's only a few shots, and one comes earlier, so you don't really notice unless you've got a really keen eye. But, it was generally a lot of excitement that day just to get that thing over with, and the fact that it worked. We didn't know how high it was going to go. We didn't know anything. There was no tests.
That was the rehearsal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We shot the rehearsal a lot of times on any of those big scenes. So yeah, it was a true found sort of joy there. So,
how did you earn the support of the Van Zandt family?
The Van Zandt family was an early partner in the project. I had approached them. Their father. There's 3 siblings today in Austin, New York, and Mexico, and their father wrote the book back in the 60s, and I approached them probably 2010, 2011 with the idea to make the movie and to option the rights to the book, and they knew that I was a younger filmmaker without a Hollywood pedigree by any means, and I told them our approach was going to be a smaller scale sort of film. It was going to be an independently financed film, and I just basically begged them to get behind the project and to option the rights, at a reasonable rate, and they did, a very reasonable rate, which allowed me to own those rights. And that allowed me to go raise funds for the development of the movie.
Which didn't quite go as you had hoped.
No. We started really raising funds in 2012, 2013. The book is a very well-known, respected book in the oil industry. And I thought it was going to be a cinch to raise the funds because of the fan base. And it really wasn't. And I think a lot of people had the anticipation of, if The Iron Orchard was ever going to get made, it needed to be a huge Hollywood film.
With Steven Spielberg or something.
Yeah, well, Clint Eastwood kept coming up, as well as Ron Howard. And previous owners of the rights had tried to get those guys involved, and it never happened. So my approach was, let's just do it. Just like the independent oil men of West Texas, why don't we go out and do it on our own? And just like, nobody had made the film for almost 50 years, so isn't it time to try a different approach? Because various Hollywood entities did have the rights to it over time, and Paul Newman was attached at one point, a young Clint Eastwood as an actor, Steve McQueen, and for some reason or another, it never got made. So this sort of fresh idea of doing this independently, I think it worked, obviously, but I think it took a lot of the fans off guard who just imagined it as this huge, There Will Be Blood or bigger even. So the Van Zandts were very into that, and ultimately I found my guys who thought that was a great idea as well. And the oil industry and the film business are very similar in a lot of ways because of the high aptitude for risk and taking risks in order to get things done, and it's creative as well. You have risk takers that actually think creatively on how they're going to drill a well, because it's not just drilling a well. It's there's all sorts of techniques and whatnot, and a driller is like a director, a producer is like the financier, The geologist is like the cinematographer. I mean, we've talked about it. And
so many parallels.
Yeah.
And it boils down to how can you do it more efficiently to save time and money.
That's right. And you're always on location in a hostile environment, and dealing with a multitude of people and factors. And yeah, I mean, the parallels are really, really crazy. But yeah, it took a while, but we found that group of kind of art-loving and creative, thoughtful oil men, mostly West Texas, that were like, let's do this deal. This is going to be fun. And I think they've had a blast, hopefully.
Yeah, because it just sounds like you just had the right circumstances line up because you were patient enough to wait for it, because when you look back, you had the right place, the right time with the right people. And every filmmaker faces setbacks, but how is it that you were able to just be chill about it and get through these hard times to be as strong as you did?
Well, it's interesting. We were with a downturn in the oil industry as well, and we about shut in. As you would shut a rig in. We almost packed it up in like 2015 because the price of oil went down really low.
$26 or something like that.
Yeah. And we were just like, you know what? Like, our whole basis of getting this project financed was based on the honoring of the book and the fan base of the book. And, if they're struggling or at least, tightening their purse strings during this downturn, then we have no hope because this wasn't something that Hollywood was going to finance. So we kind of put it on the back burner for about a year, always trying to do stuff, trying to keep it alive. But ultimately, there was just an uptick, and a couple of our really close partners who are huge fans of the book and are just like, go out and do it kind of guys. They were like, look, how low can we get the budget? Can you get it to a point where you can make a great film for a budget at the fraction of your original budget? And we got together with a line producer, came up with like a bare bones budget, and I said, I think I can do it for this. And they were like, all right, let's spend 3 months everybody trying to raise the money, and let's see what happens. And we got there. We finally got there, and we one guy really came in and got super excited about it, and he had just started a really cool organization called the Wildcatters Network, and they're kind of investing in more artistic projects. And he's a oil guy, and the whole sort of motive is fun, creative, risk-taking projects that exude a Wildcatters mentality. And we were a perfect fit for one another, and he's been with us ever since, and the whole group has, and they've been nothing but supportive. And finally, 3 weeks before we started shooting, we kind of had the budget we needed. I mean, it was down to a wire too. We were walking in with a budget that we thought we could get the movie made for.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, we couldn't have gotten that movie made for it. We could have shot something, but right in the last 3 weeks, we kind of got another sort of portion of our budget that helped us kind of up the scales a little bit, and make it a much more beautiful film. We added another day or two to shooting because we ended up losing 2 days due to weather.
Right.
So yeah, man, it was just really taking a chance at letting it play out as it should, and I think it paid off. We tried to be patient, and we just tried to deal with it each day. And yeah,
I think actually even people in the oil business would appreciate that too, because nowadays it's knowing when to drill, and it means being patient and waiting for the right time to drill.
Yeah, it's funny. At a certain point, you do these tests, and you're like, all right, we either keep going or we don't.
Right.
But there's like, geological tests. For us, it's like once you start, you can't pull out really, unless you have just a, terrible ring of luck, or I don't know if I can't imagine ever stopping midway, but I know it does happen every once in a while. But once you start principal photography, I mean, all you do is just try to take each day as best as you can. Obviously your AD's planning. For me as a director, it's like our first 2 days, by day 4 we were almost 2 days behind schedule because of weather. And at that rate, it would have been a disaster. But after those first 4 days, everything just kind of fell into place. And so we made up those 2 days. We actually got a couple of days because of, some reorganization of funds and things like that. And finally got our full schedule in place. And after the first 4 days, it was not smooth sailing, but we didn't get hail. We didn't get, 112 degree days that ended in like golf ball size hailstorm.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was insane. It was the epitome of West Texas erratic weather. So yeah.
So you had this film screen yesterday at the Dallas International Film Festival. Did you get to sit in with the audience during that time?
I did for a bit. I gave up my seat. Yeah.
Oh, you gave up your seat?
Yeah, because I wanted everybody to be in there that could actually vote and be in there and enjoy it. We had a lot of people come in from West Texas, so I wanted them to experience it, firsthand. Because they came in for the weekend, and there's another screening on Monday, but they needed to see it yesterday.
Because that was the best time for them to come.
Yeah.
So for the bit that you did get to kind of observe, what was that like for you? What were you watching for? And did the audience react differently than how you expected?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think festivals are kind of like that in general. I feel like it's maybe your fan base, and so they react at everything. Or maybe not. Maybe it was just a great reactionary crowd, but I feel like they laughed at the right times. They oohed and awed, and apparently a lot of people were teary-eyed at the end, and I think people laughed and cried, and went through the emotional sort of arc of this character. And the 2 or 3 times I stepped in and was really listening, everything hit that I expected it to hit. I was very pleased with that. And I think overall the audience was very surprised with the product, because we'd been building it up, and at least the people in our network, and nobody really knew what to expect, because it was a really small budget for the most part. I mean, indie films can be $50,000. We weren't that small, but for what we did, a period piece in West Texas of 1940s and 50s, it was a tiny budget, and most people were very, very pleased with the kind of visual quality and the actors and the story itself, and that to me was just a real honor to have that reaction. So
where do you go from here for the film itself, and then for you professionally as a storyteller?
Sure, yeah. Well, that's a good question. Dallas was the premiere, so now we've applied. We've really started to apply to other festivals. We want to do a festival run. I think the big question for us is, can a Texas or a West Texas oil and gas, based movie? And it's not necessarily a rosy.
Just that.
Yeah, it's not a rosy picture of this guy's life. It's really about this guy trying to figure out his personal ambition versus love, and what he wants out of life and what's important. And it's a much bigger picture than that. Mm-hmm. So can it entice an audience abroad in Europe or Asia for that matter? I mean, Texas has a draw, and it has that sort of mythic side to it. So we got to see what happens abroad. We've applied to a ton of different festivals. We'll start to hear. We haven't really heard one way or the other. I mean, we did some early applications to festivals that we didn't have a finished film, and I really think this is the tightest, best cut. So we're gonna hit it like right now. We've been hitting it the last few weeks, but so we'll do the festival run. We're obviously going to start, talking to distributors as much as possible, and hopefully get a good run out of it. We feel like, I feel like this is a great film for America in a lot of ways. Middle America, the working man, and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's hopefully has a little bit more of an artistic edge to it. So it will draw in a more artistic kind of indie crowd and or foreign crowd. So, that's our goal, is just to have a really nice, festival run, and then hopefully a theatrical run. And then, my plans next are, we're looking at 3 or 4 projects. I can't really talk too much about them, but have some really interesting things that we've come across and people have approached us about, and my producers and I, and it's a matter of kind of seeing what makes sense for me. I lived a lot in Latin America, and I'm very into stories about Latin American, sort of the culture there and whatnot, and kind of been eyeballing a few things there, but some other stories here have come up as well. So Texas and kind of not necessarily period, but the genre of not Western, but maybe Southern. I don't know. Trying to kind of figure out what the best next option is. So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Well, thanks.
So thank you for taking the time from your schedule to hang out with us. Thank you for supporting Texas by filming in Texas.
Yeah, man.
And,
couldn't have done it anywhere else, that's for sure.
Yeah, it had to be here.
It had to be here. I mean, the people that opened their doors for us, I can't imagine that being done anywhere. I mean, the in-kind goods we had were unbelievable. People donating cars and hotel rooms, and yeah, it was really interesting.
Oh, that's really hospitable.
Very Texas, friendly, sort of very, very hospitable side to it. So
well done. So what websites would you like the audience to follow?
Well, we've got the Iron Orchard Movie.com, but also the Facebook and Instagram sites. We'll keep everybody updated on things. We're getting some great press thanks to you guys, so we'll keep everybody updated via, I imagine, Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not that person, but we have someone doing that. So, yeah, I think that's probably the most accurate and daily sort of tweets and stuff. So,
Ty, thanks for
cool, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.